Hello and welcome to the fifth and final video in this series covering Chapter 8 of Government in America on political parties. In this video, we're going to primarily talk about why we have a two-party system and why third parties have so much trouble getting any traction. And the major reason for that is because of the structure of our elections and the structure of our government. Most of the jobs in our government are based on districts where a bunch of people run and only the person who gets the most votes, a plurality of the votes, only that person gets the job. And so there's no reward for second place, there's no reward for third place or anything like that. We call that system first past the post districts or systems because it's just whoever is in the front when the election is over and the counting is done. They're the people that get the job. Other countries have systems that are set up proportionally, or where there might be three people elected from a certain place, and so the top three people are able to get a position. So those systems don't punish you for coming in second or punish you for coming in third. So there's more incentive to try and set up a party. All right, we have first past the post voting, and whoever gets the most votes wins. So why does that narrow us down to two parties? It's because voters know that only the person who gets the most votes gets anything. So the voters will often engage in what is known as strategic voting. I'm not going to pick the person that most agrees with me. I'm going to pick the person who I think has a chance to win, who is closest to me. So I'll look at the top two candidates, and whichever one of them is closer to me, that's the one I'll vote for. Even if there's a third party that I agree with more, I'm not going to vote for that third party. I'm not going to vote for the Libertarians. I'm not going to vote for the Greens. Why? Because I might be wasting my vote, and I might be making the end result even farther from what I want. I want to vote for somebody where my vote might make a difference and help that person win. A lot of times small parties, people don't believe they have a chance to win. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain extent, because if more people believe that the third party candidate would have a chance, maybe the third party candidate would have a chance. But it's not a risk that people are willing to take. And the reason for that is because of what we call the spoiler effect. Because if I'm looking at a ballot that's got a Republican, a Democrat, and some third parties, and I most agree with one of the third parties, I've got to think, okay, so I like the third party better, but I know the third party, unless lightning strikes, isn't going to win. If I don't vote for the Democrat or the Republican that I like, then the person that is opposite to me might win, and then I wind up further away from where I wanted to be. So let's say, for example, I'm very liberal, and I think the Democrats are too conservative. Okay, so I don't want to vote for the Democrat. I want to vote for the Green Party, all right? That's even more liberal than the Democrats. Okay, well, now because some of the liberal voters didn't vote for the Democrat, now the Democrats got fewer votes. Now the Republican wins the election. So instead of me helping someone that I thought was more liberal kind of push things in a liberal direction, I helped create a situation where the government actually got more conservative because the Republican was able to win. Now, does this happen often? Probably not. But every once in a while it does happen, and it gets a lot of attention, and it sticks in voters' mind. One of the most recent famous examples is the 2000 presidential election in Florida, okay, where Ralph Nader was running in exactly the scenario I just described. He was running with the Green Party, saying that the Democratic Party was too conservative, and he was encouraging people who were very liberal to vote for him and the Green Party instead of the instead of the Democratic Party. So, as it turned out, in 2000, the entire election came down to Florida. Whichever candidate, George W. Bush for the Republicans or Al Gore for the Democrats, whichever one of those two won Florida, would win all of Florida's electoral votes, and those electoral votes would be enough to win the presidency. Okay? So now you can see here how close the voting in Florida was. All right? A few hundred votes separated George W. Bush from Al Gore. And look who's right underneath Al Gore. It's Ralph Nader from the Green Party, all right, who got tens of thousands of votes. If just a few hundred more of those Greens had decided to vote for Gore instead, Gore would have won Florida, Gore would have won the presidency. So that sort of served as a warning about the dangers of a third party being a spoiler. So people kind of pull back from voting for a third party because they're being strategic. They're saying, I'd love it if the Green Party won, or on the conservative side, I'd love it if the Libertarian Party won, but they're probably not going to. So why should I vote for them and make the party that I dislike the most, give them a better chance to win? So that's why our system pushes towards having two dominant parties, because any more than that, and the voters just say, no, wait, you're pulling away, you're actually making it harder for me to get what I want instead of easier, so I'm not going to support you. So having said that, why does anyone support a third party to begin with? Some of it is leverage. So remember we talked about rational choice theory and the idea that you want to go after the voters in the middle in order to try and win the general election? Well, the voters on the left and the voters on the right, they don't want to be taken for granted. They don't want the Democrats to assume, oh, I don't need to worry about satisfying the liberals because who else are they going to vote for? They don't want the Republicans to say, I don't need to worry about satisfying the conservatives. Who else are they going to vote for? So by putting up the spoiler effect and saying, this could happen if you don't show us some respect and give us something that we want, it's a way for the ideologies to kind of help pull their candidates from going too hard towards the center. Also, they're a signal. If you're a Democrat and you see that the Democrats are losing a lot of votes to the Greens, that tells you that something's not right. If you're not pleasing your voters, if you're a Republican and you see people going towards the Libertarian Party, maybe you got to change something and get those voters back. They also can, maybe if the third party is talking about something that neither the Republicans or the Democrats are talking about, then that calls attention to it, and it lets the Republicans and the Democrats know, hey, there are a lot of voters who care about this thing that we haven't been talking about. Maybe we need to change our message so that we can go get those voters. So third parties serve a function, but that function, even though they're trying to get elected, their function usually doesn't involve them getting elected, just because of the way our system works. In a proportional system, if the Democrats get 40 8% of the vote, and the Green Party gets 2% of the vote or 3% of the vote, um, that's actually not too bad because the two of them can team up and they've got 52% of the vote, and they can get something done. Um, you know, don't quote my numbers here because I'm kind of exaggerating to make a point. But in a first past the post system, if the Democrat gets 48 and the Republican gets 49, then the Democrats are completely out of luck. And so that's why our system tends to push towards the two-party system, but third parties still make their voices heard. The final thing that I want to close with, with this chapter is that the authors in particular do kind of close out by wondering whether or not our political parties are strong enough, because they can't knock heads together and force people to support them. If a particular Democrat in Congress doesn't like a bill, they're probably not going to he or she's probably not going to vote for the bill. And you could see that back in 2009 and 2010 when the Democrats controlled Congress and Barack Obama was president. It was still hard to get stuff passed because you had to satisfy almost every single Democrat, and that was tough. There is a question of, can the parties keep themselves organized enough that when they are in power, they actually can implement something that looks a little bit like their platform. Again, the United States isn't as powerful with its political parties as other countries have their political parties, but the parties do have some power, and they are able to get some things done. But we'll talk in later chapters about some of the things that maybe make it harder to get things done in the American system of government. But until then, I'll leave you with these questions for further thought.